Joining us right now is Congresswoman Cynthia Lummis, Republican of Wyoming, sitting on that committee. You were there last night for the hearing?
I
yesterday?
was, and the frustration was palpable in the room by the members of the committee. First, we had the National Archivist saying, yeah, there have been laws broken, that the protocols weren't followed for retaining information. Lois Lerner's emails were lost because the computer crashed. They weren't backed up. The tapes that backed them up were recorded over after 6 months. 6 other people, in addition to Lois Lerner, who would have been part of the email group that Lois Lerner was involved in, that were receiving these emails, also had some sort of computer problem. So it sounds a little bit like the dog ate my homework, and the committee's not buying it.
All right, you spoke about what the archivist said. I have a little snippet of tape that I want to play out, and I want you to get the reaction. Here's what the archivist said under questioning about what was done at the IRS with these records.
At any time in 2011, through last Monday, did the IRS report any loss of records related to Lois Lerner? Is it fair to say that the IRS broke the Federal Records Act?
They're required, any agency is required to notify us when they realize they have a problem that could be destruction or disposal, unauthorized disposal.
But they didn't do that.
That's right.
Did they break the law?
I'm not a lawyer.
But you administer the Federal Records Act.
I do.
If they didn't follow it, can we safely assume they broke the law?
They did not follow the law.
Well, first of all, if you didn't follow the law, then you broke it, right? I mean,
right.
And then secondly, what is going on with an investigation over at the Justice Department about a violation of the Federal Records Act? At the very least, we know that is the case.
Well, the Justice Department is yet another source of frustration, which is why we were calling on a special prosecutor. We want the FBI involved in this because their authority and powers to prosecute are superior to, of course, Congress's powers and superior to other entities as well.
Congresswoman, you said that you're not buying it. The Republicans on the committee aren't buying it. If you say you're not buying it, that means people are lying to you. That means that they're not telling you the truth. What is there anything that you can do about that at this point? And by the way, are there any Democrats who maybe not on the record, but when you're in the cloakroom, you're having conversations, they can't be very comfortable with this situation, can they be?
Well, there were a couple of Democrats even yesterday during the hearing that expressed concern that targeting is occurring and mentioned that we can't have targeting occurring whether it's progressive or conservative groups that are targeted. That's something well understood. The problem here that we frequently can't get acknowledged is the only groups that were being audited were the conservatives. 100% of the organizations that were audited were conservative. So it was clearly targeting. It is an ongoing source of frustration for our committee and for the Ways and Means Committee. But there seems to be a narrative that the Democrats have pulled together that they used both during the Ways and Means Committee hearing and the Oversight and Government Reform Committee hearing to suggest that, these computers crash all the time, this is normal, this is just in the regular course of business. But the fact that we were not informed is further creates suspicion on our part.
A lot of people looked at the testimony of Jennifer O'Connor and said, well, you didn't really get much out of her. But what you really do have is having her on the record about what she allegedly knows or does not know. If the documentary record belies that fact, then you have made great progress there, have you not?
Well, it was worth bringing her in because as the clip that you played at the beginning of our little discussion between Jason Chaffetz and her showed that we're now going to have to go in and we're going to be the ones that are going to have to find out who was on the receiving end of Lois Lerner's emails, because those emails certainly couldn't all have been lost since certainly 80-some computers could not have simultaneously crashed. And we know that the sphere of influence involved here is roughly 80 workers at the IRS.
Representative Cynthia Lummis is our guest, Republican of Wyoming. She's on the Oversight Committee. And Congressman, while we've got you, there was a story that bubbled up yesterday that John Boehner, Speaker of the House, is considering some legal action against the executive branch because of an overstep and unconstitutional sidestepping of the legislative branch, your branch, the branch that you represent and protect in the Constitution. Do you have, if the Speaker picked up the phone and said, Cynthia, what do you think we should go after the President for on this in terms of his overreach, where would you start?
Well, it looks like obstruction of justice. But we need to build a case. We also need to make sure that Eric Holder really isn't going to do anything. Certainly he has not done anything in the past. We had to hold him in contempt over the Fast and Furious debacle, and we had to hold Lois Lerner in contempt over this debacle. And yet, after doing that, matters were just dropped by the Justice Department, who is responsible to take the next step to ferret out this, what I consider to be obstruction of justice.
Assuming Eric Holder does nothing, what are you going to do?
Well, I'm pleased that Speaker Boehner is considering lowering the boom, because we're getting near, certainly on the Oversight and Government Reform Committee, near the point where we've exhausted our authority here. We're not prosecutors. The Congress doesn't have prosecutorial authority, and we're calling on them to bring in the FBI and look at this from a criminal perspective, and getting no cooperation there. This is something that the President should be calling for. He should want the shop clean, for him to go on TV and say there's not a scintilla of corruption, and we uncover what we believe looks and smells an awful lot like corruption, and the President's non-responsive leads me to believe that the Speaker's on the right track here.
Great.
Isn't the real concern here, if I could for just a second longer, isn't the real concern here is that Dave Camp first raised the flare about this with the IRS saying, are you investigating conservative groups? And it's like 2 or 3 days later, we have a crash of Lois Lerner's hard drive. Isn't that the real concern, that there is a 1-2 connection here? Dave Camp raises the flare, hard drive crashes.
Within 10 days. You are absolutely right. That's what happened. And because of that, there seems to be a causal relationship.
We got to leave it right there. Cynthia Lummis, thank you so much for joining us. Greatly appreciated.